Welcome, lone wolves. Not every quiet man is harmless. Some simply choose peace over performance. There's a reason Sigma males don't fit the nice guy label, and it's not because they're rude or unkind. It's because they've witnessed what happens when men shrink themselves to gain acceptance. Being the nice guy often comes with an unspoken contract. Always put others first. Soften your voice. Never challenge the status quo. Sigma males reject that agreement completely. They're not cold, they're calculated. They care deeply, but never carelessly. They won't pander for attention. They won't twist their truth to make others comfortable. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. If you're the kind of man who values depth over display, who chooses to listen more than speak, who stands for truth rather than chasing popularity, then you're not the nice guy, and that's a strength, not a flaw. You weren't built to be predictable. You weren't created to be liked by everyone. You're here to be real. You're here to stand firm. You won't be embraced by all, but you'll be respected by those who understand, and misunderstood by those who never will. Let them. The world doesn't need more agreeable men. It needs men who can sit in silence without losing their center. Men who don't just perform kindness, but live it with integrity. You're not the nice guy because you're something far rarer. A man who doesn't need to be seen to be certain of who he is. That is strength. That is peace. That is power. That is you. Let's begin, lone wolves. Number 1, they never tone themselves down. Sigma males don't dilute themselves to fit in. They don't hide their depth, their quirks, or their way of thinking just to make others more comfortable. If their presence feels too much for someone, that person simply doesn't belong in their space. These men carry a depth that can't be easily packaged. Their thoughts run layers deep. Their interests don't always match the crowd. Their words often land in ways that unsettle those used to shallow conversations. But rather than dimming their light, Sigma males let it shine, boldly and unapologetically. To them, being authentic is non-negotiable. If that makes certain people uncomfortable, so be it. A Sigma male would rather sit in silence than waste words on meaningless small talk. He would rather be misunderstood than pretend to be someone he's not. People often mistake this for arrogance, but it's not. It's self-trust. He knows who he is and doesn't fear standing out. He doesn't twist himself to be more digestible for others. He doesn't dilute his truth just to make it easier to swallow. He speaks as he is. He thinks as he is. He lives as he is. And if you can't meet him there, in that space of rawness, depth, and sincerity, he won't beg you to stay. He won't adjust his volume. He won't soften his edge. He'll simply move on. That's why a Sigma male circle is small but solid. The people in it aren't there because he became more approachable or palatable. They're there because they can handle who he really is, the depth, the quirks, the intellect, the silence. Unfiltered. Untouched. Unchanged. And that's the only way he'll ever let you in. Number 2, they choose brutal clarity over passive politeness. Sigma males don't sugarcoat. They don't dress up their words just to keep things smooth. If something needs to be said, they say it, clearly, calmly, and without fluff. While most people tiptoe around the truth to avoid awkward moments, a Sigma male walks straight into it. Not to hurt or shock, but to stay honest. He knows what passive politeness creates: confusion, superficial connections, and quiet resentment. It leaves a room thinking everything's fine when nothing real was ever said. That doesn't sit right with a Sigma. He'd rather face discomfort than tolerate dishonesty. This doesn't mean he's reckless or rude. In fact, it's the opposite. He chooses his words with precision. Not to win favor, but to leave no room for misunderstanding. To a Sigma, respect is rooted in truth, not in empty compliments or silence. If he doesn't like something, he'll tell you. If he's not interested, he won't pretend to be. If something feels off, he'll address it, directly and calmly. This clarity can sting, especially for those used to soft talk and ambiguous promises. But with a Sigma, you'll always know where you stand. You won't get passive aggression. You won't get guilt trips. You'll get the truth even when it's uncomfortable. For the Sigma male, honesty is a form of respect, and pretending to keep the peace is simply not an option. In a world of polite liars, the man who speaks the truth and stands by it is the one you remember. And when he speaks, even silence listens. Number 3, they say no, and mean it. When a Sigma male says no, it's not a maybe in disguise. It's not a cry for attention, not a door left half open. It's a firm, quiet decision rooted in conviction. This alone sets him apart in a world where most people hesitate, apologize, or second-guess themselves just to keep the peace. A Sigma male doesn't say yes to avoid conflict. He doesn't agree out of guilt or fear of rejection. If something contradicts his values, disrupts his peace, or doesn't sit right with him, he shuts it down, clearly, calmly, and with no need for explanation. That kind of clarity is rare. Most people bend under pressure because they fear judgment or crave belonging. But Sigma males don't play that game. They've done the inner work to understand themselves, and once you truly know what you stand for, saying no becomes an act of honor, not aggression. It's not about being difficult. It's about being deeply aligned. You can try guilt-tripping him, manipulating him, or painting him as selfish, it won't work. He's not moved by noise or desperation. He's moved by principle. And when he draws a line, it stays drawn. He doesn't make threats he won't keep, and he doesn't set boundaries he doesn't enforce. You can trust that when a Sigma male says no, he means it. That's the power of knowing himself. In a world full of people saying yes to keep the peace, a man who knows when and how to say no is rare and unforgettable. It's not arrogance. It's self-respect. It's integrity. And it's absolutely non-negotiable. Number 4, they don't flirt to please. Sigma males don't flirt just to get a reaction. They don't hand out compliments like candy hoping someone will bite. They don't say things just because it's what you want to hear. That's not their style. Their energy doesn't beg for attention, it commands it quietly, naturally, and effortlessly. When a Sigma male is attracted to someone, it doesn't arrive with noise and flash. It's calm, grounded, and focused. It doesn't scream, "Notice me," because he's not chasing validation. He's assessing, observing, feeling out if your energy aligns with his peace. That's the difference. He's not trying to win you over. He's choosing, not performing. He doesn't flirt to be liked. He flirts because he means it. There's no hidden agenda, no cheesy lines, no shallow compliments. What you get is rare, genuine interest with depth. He won't make a move unless it's backed by sincerity. And that can unsettle people used to low-stakes games and performative connections. The Sigma male doesn't adjust his personality just to get closer to someone. His confidence doesn't rest in pleasing others. It rests in knowing himself. That's why his presence feels different. He doesn't walk into a room hoping to be noticed, yet somehow he captures attention. And when he chooses to express interest, it's not to fill a void or stroke an ego. It's because he sees a connection worth exploring. For the Sigma male, attraction is real, or it's nothing. And that's precisely why he's unforgettable. Number 5, they read intentions, not smiles. Sigma males aren't fooled by charm. A sweet smile means nothing if the energy behind it feels off. While most people get swept away by tone, compliments, or politeness, Sigma males tune into something deeper. They're not impressed by surface-level kindness, they're watching for what lies beneath. They notice patterns. They notice who interrupts, who waits, who only appears when there's something to gain. They notice the shift in energy when certain people walk into a room. They notice the tension in a voice, the hesitation before an answer, the subtle glance that gives away a lie. Sigma males don't rely on words alone. They observe behavior when no one is looking. They watch for inconsistencies, moments where words and body language diverge. They study silence as much as speech. That's why people often feel exposed around them. You can try to win a Sigma over with charm or flattery, but he's not reacting like everyone else. He's assessing. He's listening. He's reading the spaces between words. He catches the shift in your voice when you're being dishonest. He hears the silence where a truth should be. This sharp awareness makes Sigma males hard to manipulate and nearly impossible to deceive. They don't need a warning. They don't need proof. Their intuition and observations tell them everything long before words ever can. And if something doesn't feel right, he won't make a scene or call it out. He won't argue or try to expose you. He'll simply create distance, quietly, decisively, and with no second chance. That's the Sigma way. Not to react, not to confront unnecessarily, but to discern and to disengage. Most people don't realize how quickly a Sigma has figured them out, until it's too late. Number 6, they dismantle people-pleasing. Sigma males don't live their lives trying to keep everyone happy. It's just not how they're built. They're not wired to nod along just to avoid discomfort, or to sugarcoat their thoughts so they'll be seen as the good guy. In fact, if being liked requires them to shrink themselves or put on an act, they'll walk away from the spotlight altogether. Why? Because Sigma males understand something most people miss: being liked by everyone often means you're not being real with anyone. And for a Sigma male, truth will always matter more than temporary approval. While many play the game of being nice to gain acceptance, the Sigma chooses to be clear, firm, and honest. He knows that genuine respect is built on sincerity, not on appeasement. He can disagree openly without raising his voice, and walk away from chaos without explaining himself. That isn't arrogance, it's strength rooted in deep self-respect. People-pleasing drains energy. It forces you to water yourself down, to sacrifice pieces of who you are just to fit in. The Sigma male doesn't fall for that trap. He doesn't soften his voice to seem harmless. He doesn't bite his tongue to stay agreeable. And when he speaks, it's not to impress, it's because it needs to be said. That might make him harder to read and even harder to control, but that's precisely the point. He refuses to be molded into a more digestible version of himself. You either accept him as he is, or you step aside. There's no in-between. In a world obsessed with pleasing everyone, the Sigma male is a quiet rebellion. He doesn't chase approval, he commands respect. Not by pretending, not by performing, but by being direct, unshakable, and authentically himself. That's not defiance. That's integrity. And that's why he's impossible to ignore. Number 7, they're strategic with their time and affection. Sigma males don't hand out their attention like it's free candy. Every second they spend with you is intentional. Every text they reply to, every conversation they engage in, every glance that lingers, none of it is random. None of it is wasted. They aren't trying to fill time or escape boredom. If a Sigma male chooses to be present with you, it's because you matter to him. Period. These men guard their energy like others guard their money. They don't stay in spaces that feel shallow or meaningless, and they don't entertain out of politeness or obligation. Their affection is never over the top, but when it's given, it's unmistakable. It's quiet, focused, and charged with sincerity. You don't get it just because you want it, just because you're available. You get it because you've earned their trust, their respect, and their attention. That's why it feels different when a Sigma male gives it to you. His presence doesn't scream for recognition, it settles in with a quiet confidence that draws you closer. It makes you wonder what he sees that others don't. And if you ever take that presence for granted, he won't create a scene. He won't make threats or issue ultimatums. He'll simply reclaim it, quietly, calmly, and completely. No drama, no second thoughts. Just a shift in energy that says, this chapter is closed. The Sigma male understands that meaningful connections aren't built on constant availability, but on intentionality. So when he chooses to be part of your life, fully, sincerely, and consistently, it's not by accident. It's a choice. And that choice is never made lightly. Number 8, they don't confuse kindness with weakness. Sigma males are kind, but it's a very different kind of kindness. It's not loud. It's not performative. It doesn't come with hidden expectations or a desperate need for applause. It's genuine, grounded, and quiet. But make no mistake, it's never soft enough to be stepped on. Sigma males have learned a lesson many still struggle with: being kind doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean saying yes when you mean no, or swallowing your truth just to avoid upsetting others. They don't serve their kindness on a silver platter for people who have no intention of respecting it. Their kindness has boundaries, strong, unmistakable boundaries. If you mistake a Sigma male's calm demeanor or willingness to help as a sign that he can be used, manipulated, or taken for granted, you're in for a rude awakening. The moment he senses that his kindness is being exploited, he will stop offering it. Not with drama, not with a warning, just silence, distance, and disconnection. This is where most people get it wrong. They assume a truly kind person will always stay soft, always forgive, always bend. But the Sigma male doesn't play that role. He knows how to care deeply without losing himself. He knows how to give fully, but only where it's deserved. And here's the paradox: when a Sigma chooses to be kind to you, it's because he respects you. It's because he's allowing you into a space that very few are invited to enter. But if you cross the line, if you try to turn that kindness into a weapon or treat it like a weakness, he won't argue or try to justify himself. He'll walk away, self-respect intact, without looking back. That's the Sigma way. He can be kind without being controlled, compassionate without being spineless. And that rare balance, strength rooted in quiet integrity, is precisely what makes him unforgettable. Number 9, they see through victimhood tactics. Sigma males have a sharp eye for emotional games, especially the common tactic of weaponized victimhood. The guilt trips. The passive blame. The exaggerated helplessness. Where others might be pulled in, compelled to fix or rescue, the Sigma male stays grounded. He doesn't confuse a sob story for sincerity, and he won't be manipulated by guilt or obligation. He can listen with compassion, sure. But the moment he senses a pattern of emotional exploitation, he doesn't hesitate to detach. Not with anger. Not with drama. Just quietly and completely. He doesn't grant space for guilt trips or emotional circus acts because he knows what real vulnerability looks like, and it doesn't masquerade as a weapon. That's why Sigma males don't cave when guilt, don't say yes when every instinct says no. They don't hand over control just to avoid making someone uncomfortable. They understand that strength means holding boundaries, making space for growth, not for manipulation. For a Sigma, connections must be rooted in accountability, not in performance. They stand with those doing their inner work, those rising from their pain. But when pain becomes a tool for control, when trauma turns into a script for leverage, Sigma males walk away. Not out of cruelty, but out of integrity. They don't teach lessons. They don't explain endlessly. They simply remove themselves from spaces that no longer honor mutual respect. Number 10, they refuse to perform masculinity. Sigma males don't adhere to a script about how a man is supposed to walk, talk, or prove himself. They don't puff out their chest to appear dominant, nor do they downplay their strength to seem harmless. They don't switch themselves on or off based on who's watching or what an environment demands. What you see is what you get, unfiltered, unpolished, and authentically whole. That's precisely why Sigma males unsettle people. They're not trying to fill the role of the alpha in the room, nor are they trying to lean into the softer, sensitive guy persona. Those are performances, masks meant to soothe the perceptions of others. The Sigma male doesn't wear a mask, doesn't shift his tone, doesn't adjust his behavior just to fit into a category or make others comfortable. His masculinity doesn't scream for attention, and it doesn't shrink for approval. It simply is. People often struggle with this because it doesn't fit into a convenient box. They can't define him by stereotypes, can't read him by assumptions. He can be soft when the moment calls for it, sharp when required, and completely indifferent to how that affects the perceptions of others. He doesn't signal toughness for applause, nor vulnerability for sympathy. He operates from a deeper space, a space rooted in self-ownership, quiet strength, and an integrity that doesn't require external validation. This is why Sigma males are unpredictable and unforgettable. In a world where so many wear masks to fit in, he doesn't just stand apart, he stands rooted. Not in performance, but in presence. Not in appearances, but in essence. And that is precisely why he commands a rare kind of respect, one that doesn't hinge on noise or labels, but on character. Number 11, they protect their energy as a sacred resource. Sigma males understand that energy is currency, a finite, irreplaceable resource that must be invested wisely. In a world that treats connectivity like a free-for-all, the Sigma male operates differently. He knows that every conversation, every interaction, every space he enters has a cost. It can uplift and energize, or it can deplete and drain. And so he chooses intentionally, allowing access only to those who respect the value of that exchange. To the Sigma male, saying yes to one thing means saying no to another, and he doesn't make that choice lightly. He doesn't spend time with people because it's expected or convenient. He doesn't fill moments with noise just to kill silence. He doesn't give pieces of himself away for temporary comfort or shallow connections. He knows that pouring into meaningless relationships doesn't just dilute his focus, it blurs his boundaries and leaves him scattered. This doesn't make him elitist, cold, or detached. It makes him conscious. The Sigma male understands that quality is far more valuable than quantity, in friends, conversations, relationships, or moments. He doesn't surround himself with noise, ego, or superficiality. Instead, he chooses spaces and connections aligned with his values, rooted in mutual respect, depth, and sincerity. He knows that clarity is born from space, strength is cultivated in silence, and integrity is rooted in knowing where to draw the line. To others, this may seem like distance, or even disinterest, but it's far from apathy. It's precision. It's a deep reverence for his own energy, a belief that how he spends it determines the quality of his life. In a world that doesn't recognize the cost of its own excess, the Sigma male operates by a different measure. He knows that every yes is a promise he must be prepared to honor, and every no is a boundary that preserves who he is. In choosing where, how, and with whom he spends his time and energy, he doesn't just protect his peace, he maintains the sharpness and clarity that define him. That, above all else, is how he preserves his edge. It's how he remains grounded in a world that constantly demands more and gives back too little. It's how he chooses strength over superficiality, depth over distraction, and truth over noise. The Sigma male knows the worth of his energy, and that knowing, more than anything, is what sets him apart. Number 12, they're allergic to emotional dependency. Sigma males aren't here to carry someone else's emotional weight. They're not here to fix, rescue, or fill a void that another person refuses to acknowledge within themselves. This doesn't make them cold or detached, it makes them deeply aware. It's this awareness that allows them to love from a space of strength, clarity, and mutual respect. A Sigma male will stand beside you when you're doing your own inner work. He will listen, support, and offer understanding when he sees genuine effort and accountability. But if that support turns into an obligation, if your emotional well-being becomes his responsibility, he will quietly step back. Not because he doesn't care, but because he knows this is where resentment takes root. He understands how quickly "you complete me" can shift into "you owe me," how quickly vulnerability can turn into manipulation, guilt, and control. The Sigma male knows that a relationship rooted in desperation or emotional dependency can never evolve into one based on mutual trust and authentic connection. It can only become a cage. And he will never sign up for that. For the Sigma male, connections are built between two whole people, not one person extracting strength from the other like a crutch. He doesn't seek to dominate or to be dominated. What he craves is balance, autonomy, and mutual reverence. He doesn't ask for perfection from a partner, only sincerity. He doesn't walk away because he doesn't love, but because he knows that love is not about consuming or controlling. It is about liberating, supporting, and allowing both people to grow, evolve, and flourish. This is why Sigma males have little tolerance for dynamics rooted in guilt or desperation. They recognize that a relationship built on such a foundation can only lead to heartbreak and resentment. In their world, emotional intimacy is a sacred space, one that demands trust, honesty, and accountability. They will give of themselves fully when those conditions are met, and they will walk away when those conditions no longer exist. The Sigma male doesn't shy away from deep connections. In fact, he embraces them. But he will never accept a bond rooted in emotional bondage. He will never surrender his boundaries, his integrity, or his inner peace for the illusion of belonging. To him, genuine love is about standing together as equals, strong, self-aware, and committed to growth. Everything else is just noise. Everything else is a cage. And that's one thing a Sigma male will never accept. Final thought. Being true to yourself will cost you comfort, but it will buy you clarity. The Sigma male doesn't walk the path of conformity because he knows where it leads, to compromise, approval-seeking, and quiet submission. He doesn't carry the Sigma mindset because it's trendy, or because it looks good in a headline. He carries it because he knows what it feels like to live for applause, to exhaust himself with shallow connections, and to wear a mask just to fit in. Then one day, he chose differently. He chose depth over noise, clarity over chaos, and truth over popularity. That choice doesn't make him cold or detached. It makes him intentional. It means every word, every glance, every moment he gives is offered with purpose, not out of habit. He doesn't flirt for ego. He doesn't say yes to dodge discomfort. He doesn't twist himself into shapes that suit others' comfort zones. He sees people for who they truly are. He acts when it matters. He speaks when silence would be a lie. Even when it makes others uneasy, he stays rooted in himself. That isn't arrogance. That's discipline. If you've ever felt out of place in a world that demands conformity, remember this. You're not difficult, you're deliberate. You're not detached, you're focused. You're not the nice guy, you're the honest one. The one who chooses depth over noise. Respect over approval. Truth over comfort. Keep being that man. The world may not always understand you, but it will always remember you. Thank you for watching, Lone Wolves, and God bless all of you. Stay sharp. Stay true. Stay lone wolves.